Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LeanTossup College Football Podcast. We are in week 6 here of the college football season. I am joined, as always, by my co-host Buck Metrics at Buck Metrics on Twitter. How are you doing tonight on this? We're recording this on Thursday, on Wednesday night this week, actually, not usually Tuesday night, but we had to push it to Wednesday night. How are you doing on this Wednesday night?
I am great. I am very happy to be co-hosting the sharpest college football podcast.
Yes, that is actually true. Like y- you I was actually I was a bit away this weekend, so I wasn't able to watch all the games fully on Saturday like I would like to. I will be able to do that this Saturday though. But you kept track of all of our records last week. How well felt like a really good week. How well did we do last week?
We did exceptionally well. In part two, we'll get into more details, but I'll just say we were far north of 500.
Yeah, definitely far north of 500. So, yeah. So as always, we're gonna split this up into two parts. Part one, we're gonna kind of be the recap of the last week, kind of what happened, and the next week, the next part is gonna be we're gonna be talking about the next week's games, and we're gonna do our deeper dives and stuff like that. All right. So starting off the dashboard, what just happened? Where are we now? And what happens next?
So, looking at back at kind of what we covered in the last podcast and how that played out. Couple of games I saw some point spreads and thought they were telling me something. Boise giving 6, hosting San Diego State. I said that really reflected poorly on Boise, giving only 6 to San Diego State, and what a crazy game that was. Boise actually they went down 13 to nothing, and then Boise scored 35 straight. So I kind of left that game not knowing what on earth is going on, given how bad Boise started and then how Brady Hoke San Diego State looked in the second half. So still TBD on both of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the thing. I think last week, I think on our podcast, I believe I can't remember if I made it as one of my podcast picks or if I just said it out. If I just said I wanted to pick that game, but I
Yeah, that was
had
just one of those ones that you just we kind
yeah.
of talked. I think we talked about this. You said that you'd go with San Diego State.
Yeah, I went with San
Yeah.
Diego State, and I think I was like plus 6.5, and you were like, "Oh, when this fails, you'll laugh at me." And to be fair, yes, I lost. That's fine. But like, I want partial credit for the fact that like they were leading for like a large part of that game by a pretty large margin, and then they just absolutely crumpled in the second half. So, again, wrong call, but at the same time, we're learning that one San Diego State is pretty bad, and
Hmm.
Boise State is also pretty bad too. Like, yeah, just a complete collapse there in the second half, and yeah, that was big gut wrenching. That was kind of to start the week. I think that was the Friday. That was one of the Friday games, but we had some other good stuff on Friday night, so that kind of definitely balanced that out. But yeah, that was a little disappointing though.
Yeah. Okay. I tell you what. I'll give you partial credit for that, but I'll give you full grief for betting on Brady Hoke on the road. Fair deal.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll take
Okay.
that.
The next game that just the point spread really was telling me something was FIU getting 14 at New Mexico State. Just two of the bottom teams, and I was saying, my gosh, if you're getting 14 at New Mexico State, you've got problems. Well, guess who's got more problems? New Mexico State, because they lost by 14 at home, and the Aggies QBs passed for all of 139 yards on 27 attempts. Man, that quarterback situation is just brutal there at New Mexico State. Um, I also pointed out in the BBMI section, brand-based market inertia. I basically thought that the market was not recognizing how good UCLA was when I was talking about in a BBMI context. And UCLA won by 8. Later, I actually picked UCLA per my model. So interesting. My model basically outsmarted the market in this one. Good job, Buck.
Yeah, and I was when I had this. And I saw my model projections for this game. I was because I my model also had UCLA's favorite, I believe. I was like, that's crazy. How could UCLA be favored? Washington's been such a great team, and UCLA looks so bad. Like barely beating Bowling Green, almost losing to South Alabama, and it's like, but Washington. Why would Washington only be like I think it was like 3.5, I think, and like just won outright, and it was pretty a pretty comfortable win. Like it wasn't even a
Yeah.
close win. Like the UCLA by 8, that's the final score. I actually was able to watch a large part of this game. That does not like that was not an indicator of how that game went at all. Like that was a blowout. That was literally a
Yeah.
blowout, that game. And that was Washington just coming back late and UCLA not caring. And man, that was just that was not expected at all. But again, this is why we have our models, right? The models
Yep.
tell us things like we look at a team, we see this Washington team like crushing stuff like Michigan State and all these other teams, and we're like, man, that team looks really good. And we see UCLA struggling against teams that are perceived as not good, and then the model says, yeah, no, 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 UCLA is actually better, and we're like, that's crazy, but we bet UCLA and then we win money, so it's great, yeah.
Yep. The other BBMI that I mentioned was Duke opening, just giving only one, and a total of 53.5 hosting Virginia. It just seemed to me that the market just is still having doubts about Duke, or just remains unconvinced. And Duke won handily by 21 points against the Wahoos.
Yeah, that was again. It's so weird, and I think we're gonna talk more about Duke's game this week. But like the market just like does not give any respect to this Duke team at all.
Mm,
Like literally not at all. And this one was crazy because like I was looking around my board, and I think I had this. I think we both had this as like Duke winning by multiple scores, and then they just did win by multiple scores.
yeah.
And I'm just sitting there being like I remember sitting there I think on Saturday afternoon I'm like because I was trying to find another play. I was like, oh, is there any other good plays that have like opened up through the day or anything like that? And I'm like, what's the best play I have on the board? And I think like I was like, I think the best play is just Duke -2, and I already bet it, but I'm like, I don't want to bet it again. But I think the best play I was like the best play left on the board is just Duke -2, and they just absolutely crushed it. And it was just that was crazy. Just such a like this Duke team is really good and like not like they're we just get to bet them in these at like insanely low spreads against horrible teams, and maybe we have that again this week. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Um, I actually saw some BBMI on both sides of South Alabama giving only 5 at Louisiana. I thought that Louisiana was still getting overrated, and and South Alabama a little underrated. What happened was South Alabama, they won, but only by 3. It was by far their worst effort of the season. They did hold Louisiana to under 300 yards. You know, this game was a mess. Combined, the two teams passed for 360 yards on less than 5 per attempt, which makes me think that these are the next two teams that are going to be invited to the Big Ten West. Um, I think probably what happened here was a little case of first conference road game for the Jaguars, which is just one of those sneaky angles that can come into play sometimes, not all the times, but might have been a factor here. And I think Louisiana, coming off a pretty bad loss, was a wounded animal that was going to give their best shot. Looking at the QB pluses that I had, basically we mentioned that TJ McMahon of Rice was 13th from the bottom, and yet they should have beaten Houston. And what happens? Houston just continues to prove how bad they are. They lost at home to Tulane, who was down to their third string QB. Pratt was the starter, was out. They were down to their second string QB, who I believe on the first drive of the game lowered his shoulder into a defender and knocked himself out. Great job, guy. Um,
Yeah, just I mean, again, they're not. You're not a running back. Like you're a quarterback. You're supposed to throw the ball. You're not taking out defenders. No, it's crazy that like they got down to their third string. That wasn't even the only game that happened this weekend. If you include the NFL, it actually happened at two NFL games. For the Patriots, we actually saw Bailey Zapp. We saw him against the Packers because their backup QB Brian Hoyer went down. So then it was Zapp time, and he was not horrible. He actually took them to overtime. And then in the Giants game against the Bears, Daniel Jones went down with an ankle injury. Then they're like, all right, it's Tyrod Taylor time. Well, he like immediately went down with a concussion. So the thing is, they didn't even have a third string running back. They just went wildcat with Saquon Barkley for the last part of the game. It was just crazy. It's just like it's crazy that there was like an entire weekend with like multiple instances of teams going to like their third quarterback, or in some case their wildcat quarterback. But yeah, no, it's just like yeah, I mean, here, like, first of all, again, this is again. I think I made this point last week as well, but like, we were both very high on Houston coming into this season. We were like, we liked Houston last year. It was a really fun team. We like Clayton Tune. We're like, that's a good team. We'll go with that team. Then they sucked, and then we're like, all right, we're done with this team, right? And we bet
mhm.
Kansas against them, And then I think we bet I can't remember, did we bet against them last week, the weekend before or not? I can't remember. But we've kept betting against them now, and then we take Tulane against them. And
Hmm.
like I got Tulane money line when it was like plus 125 or something. It was like at Houston -2. Then on Friday, for some reason, I think this game popped to like 4.5, and I'm just like, all right, I'll take the points and I'll take the money line again. I bought back in. I'm like, this is crazy. I think this Tulane team's just better, and because the Tulane team is actually their defense is actually pretty good, and if they
Yeah.
could shut down the best part of the Houston team, which is Clayton Tune, they should be able to win. And apparently, they could still even win with a third string backup quarterback. So, no, it's like this shows that like although it's nice to have like preseason kind of expectations for teams and like teams that we like, teams we don't like, it's extremely important to change those up on a fly and be like, you know what, this team is a lot better than I thought it was, and you know what, that's okay because you have the data and you evolve through a season, right? Like we didn't particularly like Duke, but we're like, hey, we think Duke is actually pretty good, and we bet them against Northwestern plus 10.5 and money line. That was amazing. We took them against Kansas. They won. They won. They covered the spread, but didn't cover the money line. And then we had them last week. We may have them again. Like if we see a team doing better, don't be afraid to change your priors on that. Like we've done that here with Houston. We've done that with a lot of teams, right? You can have a prior and that's okay, but don't feel like you're chained to that prior for the entirety of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Also, some of the bottom quarterbacks, we noted that Brendan Armstrong was fourth from the bottom of all QBs. And against Duke, he threw in a QB plus of 42, which just furthers just how miserable he's been this season. Second from the bottom, though, Phil Dracovic of BC, he threw in a 247 QB plus, which is one of the best of anybody this whole season. And of course, it had to be against Louisville just to kind of just beat them to death.
Yeah, this is actually the crazy thing, right? Because like if you'd asked me at like if you asked me now what was the craziest result from last weekend, I'd have to say it's Boston College beating Louisville. People are like, "No, you mean like no, you're wrong. Clearly you mean like Missouri like almost beating Georgia." I'm like, "No, no, no. That's not that surprising. Louisville losing to Boston College. That's the most surprising." Like you just pick like two random teams, but no, like I did not see this coming out of nowhere, right? I've been fading both. I've been treating Boston College and like Virginia Tech and to a lesser extent Virginia, it's basically the same team, just always bet against them on the spread, and somehow they won and covered. And I didn't even think that was possible. But like, so, and the question now, and I think we'll talk about this more later, is this Boston College team actually legit, or is this just this Louisville team has like completely fallen to pieces now at this point?
Yeah, we'll touch on that later.
Okay.
Uh, um, when we were talking about the top wide receivers, I noted that there are just a few programs that have two wide receivers in my top 40, and one of them was Charlotte. I bring this up because even though they lost to UTEP, their passing game was for almost 350 yards, over 9 per attempt against a pretty decent UTEP team. Um, but man, Charlotte, I think this was on one of those ESPN, what do they call it, like spillover channels or whatever. What a great, just I love these kind of games. No commercials, so during commercial break you hear just the idle chit chat between the play-by-play and the color guy about how they hate the sideline reporter. It's fantastic. And I just hung on for the last 7 minutes of the first half. It was great. So in the last 7 minutes of the first half, the Charlotte offense has a 9-play drive for all of 13 yards. I'm not sure how that's possible, but great, it happened. Then they give up a 9-play drive for 82 yards to give UTEP a touchdown, which this has to be like the sickos play of the year. I wish I was recording it. They gave up a 34-yard run on second and 30 with 40 seconds left in the first half. Um, right after that touchdown, UTEP kicks. Charlotte on the first place from scrimmage fumbles. UTEP picks it up and scores. So in 18 seconds, Charlotte went from down 3 with really no shot of giving up anything more to going down 17 in just 18 seconds. It was just a masterpiece of like just how you just completely throw away the game. And they only lost by 7 points. It's just, I'm kind of a skeptic of this middle eight uh thing, but you know, if you have any kind of stretch like that, my gosh, it's time to re-examine everything in your program. It was just a masterpiece to watch. It was so good. I'm going to overuse the term masterpiece, but it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that. That seems crazy. That reminds me a lot of the Florida Georgia game last year when like with like 2 minutes left, I think the game was like tied, and then suddenly Georgia like scored like 21 points in like the last two
Hmm.
minutes of the game. It's just when stuff like that happens and just the wheels fall off, you're just like just take a knee, like just end this, just go to the half. It doesn't matter if you're like people be like why they take a knee with like a minute and a half, like it does just it's fine. We're just going to the
Yeah.
halftime. That's it. We're done now. We're done. Um, but
Have you ever seen a conversion on 2nd and 30? I've never
no.
seen a conversion on 2nd and 30 in my life.
You get to like 3rd and 10, and then you get the conversion. But I've never seen like a
Yeah.
second 30 because usually that play is to set up the other
Yeah.
play.
And that's what they were trying to do. They ran, and he ran for 34 yards, and he was pushed along for probably 20 of it too, which was great. The guy wouldn't go down. I wish I remembered his name. Just awesome stuff. All right. Informing the narrative. So these are events that happen that kind of either inform or rebut kind of what we thought going in, and give us storylines and questions to ask. So Mississippi beats Kentucky by 3. Kind of lucky, but Ole Miss is now 5-0. 1-0 in conference. They lost a lot from last year's team. I actually thought they were going to take a huge step back, and I'm wondering, does the success of this team with so many new parts, does that kind of prove that elite recruiters are going to be more immune from a down year when you lose a lot in the transfer portal era?
Maybe I'm just starting to think that like maybe Lane Kiffin's system is like high floor, low ceiling, and that because the thing is again like we're starting like currently his stuff has like his players have had very little impact in the NFL. Matt Corral looked not great in the preseason. Did go down with an injury, so we're not going to see him. God knows the Panthers could definitely use him right now. Um, but no, like I'm really skeptical of this team. I was weird. It was really weird when my model said to fade Kentucky. I'm like, I thought this Kentucky team was like actually pretty good, but the model said fade them, and sure enough, Ole Miss actually straight up beat them outright. And now they actually probably should have covered the 7. It's just that they kind of got lucky in Kentucky
Yeah.
and keeping this within a touchdown. But I'm skeptical that this Mississippi this was the first test of this Mississippi team, and they look decent. But I mean, Kentucky's pretty good. Their defense is pretty good. That's why 22 points. I don't know. I'm skeptical of this team still. I'm not willing to say okay they are a good team. Like they've somehow found their way into the top 10. Don't really see that, but I don't know. I mean, to be honest, half the top 10 probably shouldn't be the top 10. So, but
Yeah.
you at that point, then you can't say that. You're like, well, this half these teams shouldn't be the top 10. Well, who should be the top 10? Well, I guess this team should just be the top 10 then, right? So, no, I'd like to see a bit more data on that. But it is an interesting point, though, right? And like we might start seeing some more perennial success stories from like maybe potentially Ole Miss. Like Ole Miss could just become a perpetual competitor in the SEC West. And
Well, as
uh,
long as Kiffin is there, because he's an elite recruiter.
yeah, that's the thing, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, maybe Michigan as well. Like, there's a couple teams who, for every once in a while, some programs would just have a down year, right? And maybe we're looking at an era where maybe the down years will be a lot less down, if that makes any sense. Like, because I
Hmm.
remember every once in a while there'd always be a down, like, oh, Michigan's just having a bad year this year. And like, okay, that's fine. And they bounce back the next year, but like maybe that down year, if you could patch together some things with like, oh, here's some offensive linemen and like a couple of wide receivers, you're good to go, right? And that's the thing. So I'm excited to see if that actually is true. I just don't feel like. Do you feel comfortable with having Ole Miss as the ninth? Like if you're submitting your paper to the AP, you're submitting your ballot to the AP, you got Ole Miss there as 9. Do you feel comfortable with that? Are you going to sleep at night saying like this is correct? I believe this.
To your point, half the top 10 doesn't belong there, and I think that they belong and don't belong there as much as any of most of those teams. I can tell you that my metrics don't. I don't. I saw them right there. They barely have them in the top 25.
Yeah.
But it's immature data. It's useful, but it's not all knowing. This was. Yeah, I just here's a team that just sticks out at me. My metrics have Illinois a lot higher on a neutral field. Who would you? What would you make that? Illinois versus Mississippi.
Ooh. I don't have my model up there right off the bat, but maybe a maybe a it should probably be a close game actually. Honestly, this Illinois team is like not horrible, and like yeah, maybe that'd be very close to even. It's definitely gonna be Illinois getting points. Like Illinois is gonna be getting like 7.5, but like I'll take the 7.5.
I was gonna say I'd take them at 7.5. So I don't think it would be that high because usually I've got one side that I'm really kind of shaded to. I'd say that like if I was gonna take Ole Miss, it would probably be maybe pick 'em. So that makes me think maybe the line would be like 3 or 4.
Hmm.
Um, Interesting. And I don't think Illinois is really a top 10 team. Nice, very nice story, but to your point, yeah. But Ole Miss has a path to prove themselves worthy,
Beat,
especially
beat
being undefeated.
beating Wisconsin does not equal top 10. That's not.
Very fair. Speaking of the Big Ten, so Michigan 27, Iowa 14. Michigan is starting to look legit, and I know that they still have a lot to prove, and Iowa is not the best test, although their defense is a good test. Can we make a case that Michigan is solidly number 4 in the nation because they are the only other complete team that doesn't really have a just a gaping hole on one side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, the thing of it is, looking at this score, the only thing I find surprising is Iowa 14. That's the only like I'm like Michigan 27. That's fine. Iowa 14. What happened there? Like, but no, I mean, this is the thing. I think if I was filling my own ballot in for the AP, I'd like reluctantly have Michigan as 4. I'm like, fine, okay, but like, because the thing is, you make a good point, right? Like outside of US, actually, I'd probably put USC higher than them, but like,
Really?
but I mean, just because I still don't believe in this team. Like beating Iowa is vaguely an accomplishment. Like again, like we're like, oh man, guys, they beat Iowa as 10-point favorites. Like okay, Iowa's horrible. Like Iowa is not a good team. Like you don't get bonus points for beating a team that is physically incapable of scoring. Like I I don't know. I'm still not taken with this Michigan team, but I think you're kind of right. It's like at a certain point, like there's just no one left, right? Like like half the top 10 shouldn't be in the top 10. Okay, but then who else should be in the top 10? Like you can't have a top 10 that's 3 teams, right? Like you can't. That's not how top 10 works, right? Someone has to be 4, right? So this is the thing. I guess they're 4. They're playing Penn State in a couple weeks, which is again another team I don't believe in at all. Um, that one will be an interesting game. I have to see what that number is. God, like I don't even know what that number is going to be. I don't know. I don't think my model has a number for that yet. But is it next week? It's not next week, right?
The Penn State game?
Penn State, Michigan. It's not next week, right?
It's not this upcoming week. I think it. Yeah. Let
Is
me
it next
see.
week? I don't know. I'll take a look. But because if it's next week, I have a line. I have an early line for it.
Yeah, it is. It's on
Oh, it
the
is. Okay. Okay. I've
15th.
got Michigan minus 16. 16.7 points.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I kind of believe that. Okay, fine then. All right, fine. Michigan is the fourth ranked team then. Fine. All right. I can't disagree with my own model. If my model says they can beat Penn State by that much, which honestly I completely agree with, then yeah, I'll take that. Michigan can be the fourth ranked team. But like it's grudging. It's just like a yeah, okay, fine. You're the fourth ranked team.
yeah, and I think that 27 might be the most points scored against Iowa this season too. Um, all right, in the Big 12, Kansas beats Iowa State 14-11. Kansas State beats Texas Tech 37-28. I bring this up because this begs the question, will the Sunflower Showdown between Kansas and Kansas State be for a bid in the Big 12 title game?
Hmm. Well, the Big 12, I actually like. I keep thinking about this because like I'm starting to think more about like all the different permutations you can have here for the championship game because like the Big 12 is like famous for chaos. This was the one that like in 2008 I think had like the three-way tie and or it was either 2008 or 2009 I can't remember. That was one of my first years following college football. The like three-way tie between like Texas, Texas Tech and I believe Oklahoma. Um but no, it like it's not going to be Oklahoma this year. They've already taken 2 conference losses, right? They've already lost to Kansas State and TCU. The nice thing about Kansas State is they lost to Tulane, which sounds horrible, but Tulane is not a Big 12 team, so they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kansas, I mean, man, like They probably should have lost that game. I was actually watching that game. I was watching the end of that game. Like
Yeah,
Iowa State had a lot of chances to tie the game. Like they missed like 3 field goals. I think he hit the bar. Like he hit the the goal post like 2 times, and I think the third time just missed. Like that game should have gone to overtime. But to be fair, on the other side though, Kansas had some fluky stuff. Like they had a fumble, and they had some weird fluky stuff happen to them too. So it's not like complete. Like Kansas probably should have scored another touchdown, but like at the same time, Iowa State should have tied the game. So yeah, I'll say they cancels out, but that was a little scary for us as Jayhawk fans. But no, like I honestly don't know. Like I think you could make a case for TCU winning the Big 12. You could make a case for Kansas State. You could probably make a case for Kansas, and like that's it. Like I can't really think of anybody else. Like not Texas,
you
not
still don't believe in Oklahoma State?
no. Their time is coming. I
Wow.
know, like this is
Okay.
they're that's such a fraudulent team. And the thing is, like, I think I was like, because when I went on my rant, I'm like, oh, and then they play Baylor. They may not, even, they may just beat Baylor. Like they should lose to Baylor, and they did beat Baylor. And I'm just like I didn't touch that game. I was like, I'm not touching this. I think Baylor was like a point and a half. I'm like, they're probably gonna win this game, and they did win this game. But like, I still don't believe in Oklahoma State. I think they're extremely fraudulent. So we're gonna have to see. But man, just like it's gonna be a very fun Big 12. And the thing is, it's so crazy because with the round robin format, like you could
Yeah.
have like TCU being like in the championship game for like every week, and then like they could lose like the last week and then just not be in the championship game, right? Like you could have something crazy happen like that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this. But yeah, I mean Kansas State versus Kansas, that could be for the Big 12 title game bid. You also have the possibility like one team could beat another team and then get revenge on them in the championship game because they also play each other, right? So like because like every team will play each other, right? So like
Yeah.
TCU's playing Kansas this week, obviously. You could see like Kansas State, but if TCU drops a couple random games somewhere, like there's just so many different combinations that I don't even know. I honestly have no idea who's going to win this Big 12, but it's exciting to see though. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And along those same lines, staying in the Big 12 a little bit. So Oklahoma lost to TCU by 31. Texas A&M loses to Mississippi State by 18. Um, I believe those are both at home too. Correct? No, no. A&M was at Mississippi State. So A&M and Oklahoma are both 3-2. Um, who would you favor on a neutral field?
Between
Oklahoma and A&M.
this will be this will actually be a matchup in a couple years.
Yeah.
Um,
I hope it's not the same as what we would look at in this mythical matchup if it was
pr-
going to happen this week.
Probably not. I mean, I'd I'd be whatever the spread is. I'd probably be taking Oklahoma. But the question is Dylan Gabriel playing? Right, that's the question.
Yeah.
And I don't. Is he playing this weekend or not? I don't think so.
I don't know.
I
Um,
I think he has a concussion, so he's out and it's the backup. Um, which that's going to be a fun game for Red River. But I unfortunately I don't think I have enough tracking data on the second quarterback, so I don't have an official play on that. But I'd be saying like probably if it's Gabriel, it'd probably be like Oklahoma -2.5. I don't believe in this A&M team. Um, and like because by extension this Arkansas team is also pretty bad. Like okay, Texas A&M beat Arkansas, okay, but then Arkansas also got crushed by Alabama and their backup quarterback. So yeah, like one fun thing about this TCU Oklahoma game. So I was away, so I was watching this kind of on my phone. At one point I looked down on my phone to check in ESPN, and I saw the score line of like 20-3. And cause I was on TCU, I bet TCU, but I when I saw 20-3, I flipped in my mind. It said that Oklahoma was up 20-3, and I'm like, oh man, that happens sometimes. Oklahoma, they can just score points really fast. And I looked at him like, wait, TCU's up 20-3? Oh, that's awesome. I'm like, that was like, this is great. But like, that's the thing, right? I was this was also really surprising upset for me. Like I had TCU as favored and by a lot, and I'm like maybe the model's a little too aggressive here, but no, the model was actually underestimated the size of this victory. Now to be fair though, Dylan Gabriel got knocked out somewhat early in the game, so we could have made this maybe a couple scores closer. But
mhm.
yeah, man, this TCU team is really fun. Apparently, just getting rid of Gary Patterson helps you a lot. Apparently, so
I clearly,
yeah.
I
But
guess
no,
so.
no, really fun TCU team. I'm excited to see what this team could do down the stretch. Like, could we potentially see the return of TC. Well, no, they never actually went to the playoff, did they? That they were good
No,
before the
they were
playoff.
they were out in that weird TCU Baylor season where
Oh, yeah,
they
that's right, where they both hurt each other. That's right.
well, they
Well,
didn't have a conference championship game either,
yes,
and
which was
so they were ranked
and
fifth and
then
sixth.
they that's right. They had to make the conference championship game because of TCU. But yeah, so we could see TCU finally get revenge for being excluded from the championship game. So yeah, that would be kind of fun. I'd be excited. Like I'd love to see an undefeated. If it's TCU undefeated, they're going to the playoff, 100%.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, they would be.
I'm
Yeah,
excited for that. So let's see what they can do.
okay. I would favor Oklahoma too.
Back to the
Yeah,
original question. Yeah,
yeah. All right, so Georgia beats Missouri by 4 in a game that was way too close, and that's 1 week after they actually had a bit more of a game from Kent State at home than it should have been. We can all every team has one clunker, but
2 in a row.
two, is this part of like what this team is going to be? Now, not to say they're going to be bad, but are they just capable of doing this any week now in the future?
Well, I think it was last year. There was times when I think I can't remember if it was Bama or like Ohio State, but every once in a while there's like a really good team that just refuses to cover spreads. They're just like, we're not covering this spread. And now there's different levels of this, right? Like if it's like, oh, here's the Ohio State spread of -35 and they win by 21, it's like, all right, whatever, who cares, right? There's a difference between that and like the spread being 20 something and you win by 4, right? And this
Hmm.
is the thing. Like 22 points on defense to Missouri, that's not particularly good, right? Like this was a
No.
smothering Georgia team. Like this Georgia team would rarely let in touchdowns, and now all of a sudden they're giving up like double digit points. Like they sometimes rarely give up double digit points. Now they're giving up 22 points to Missouri, and then also on offense, like there was, and now again, I did not see. Whenever I saw this, I laughed at it, but there was legitimately serious talk about who's the about what who's the quarterback for Georgia? Not JT
Bennett,
Daniels. He's the Missouri.
Stetson Bennett.
Stetson Bennett. There was legitimate talk about, like, people were like, George, we should talk about Stetson Bennett, Heisman, because like he's just okay, and sometimes okay, like this was insane, but people were like legitimately talking about it. I'm like, this is crazy, and I mean, this is maybe their punishment for talking about that is like for Heisman, but this is the thing. Like there was talk, it wasn't particularly serious, but there was talk about this, and like you're putting 26 against Missouri. Like again, this is Kent State, a MAC team, and Missouri, I mean, not a MAC team, but like not a particularly good SEC team though. And like this is the thing, right? So like I'm getting a little concerned now. I think you're saying maybe they could just be like bored or something, but I don't know. I just they could just be at a point where like their offense maybe like if people have figured out don't make mistakes and just like here's how to shut down their offense and just don't make mistakes on offense, then maybe people are trying to figure out how to beat this Georgia team, right? If it's like, okay, we know what plays are going to do on offense, and their offense is very stoppable, and if you just play mistake-free football, like you don't throw the ball in dangerous places, you run more often, maybe people have started to figure out a way to kind of crack open this Georgia defense a little. Like maybe they've figured out ways to keep turnovers down and stuff. So, yeah, I'm not sure if it's bored per se, but I'm thinking that maybe Georgia's dominance of the last like season and a half might be coming up a little, might be ending a little bit here.
Hmm. I, it just makes me think they could lose a stupid one or a lot more susceptible to a team like Tennessee on any given week. Maybe they just can't keep up with Tennessee suddenly.
And that's the thing in the SEC East, your season could potentially be decided by just losing to Tennessee. Like you
Hmm.
lose to Tennessee, that could be it for you. Your entire season could be just gone because you lost to Tennessee that one time,
Yep. Yeah.
right? And that's unfortunately how the SEC is, right? It's you lose when you're done, right? Now again, Tennessee will have had a loss to Alabama, but at that point they both have one conference loss,
Yeah.
and Tennessee would hold the head to head. That means Georgia goes home. Tennessee
Yep.
goes to Atlanta, weirdly enough. But yeah, so yeah, I'm a little concerned about this Georgia team. If people have kind of figured out how to stop them on offense and how to not give them a turnover on their own offense, yeah, maybe they're in trouble.
I Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to lose a couple in the regular season just based on showing that they're capable. Last one, a little farther off the grid than even you and I like to go. So Eastern Michigan beats UMass only by 10 at home, and so I'm pointing out because UMass gave Eastern Michigan more of a game than Arizona State did
Yeah.
at Tempe. Um, does this make UMass bettable in any game going forward, or is this just one of those best effort, worst effort, and UMass is going to just go winless until they play Connecticut, or even I don't even say that anymore.
Well, Connecticut
Connecticut
beat
actually won.
Fresno. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
crazy. I don't know. Like we always thought that UConn Connecticut was going to be for their one win, and it might still be. Well, I know it won't be for not for Connecticut, and I that's still going to be a good game. That game's coming up in a couple weeks. I'm still pretty pumped for that game. I think it's going to be between two equally matched teams. So I'm not. This is not UMass isn't going to start blowing the doors off anybody anytime soon. Um, but no, like that was a little concerning. And again, this is you make a good point that like this Eastern Michigan team beat Arizona State. They were like 20-point dogs to, and they crushed them. And yet somehow they like looked horrible against UMass. Like that just shows you how bad that Arizona State team under her membership. But again, didn't look horrible this week, that Arizona State team. But this is the thing, right? So I'm still gonna try to let's see what the model says on UMass. But yeah, I mean, maybe every once in a while they can get up for and get up and have a really good game, right? It's not maybe they're not a completely dead team, right? So
Yeah, and I think my model had them as a possible play, and that's where I just had to override it. So that's why another reason I brought that up. Um, so market intelligence, couple of opening lines where I thought that we're getting some kind of message here. First one, Kansas State opened pick, and now they're actually giving to it Iowa State. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if this is the market just saying Kansas State has got to be due for a letdown at some point, or Iowa State is just finding ways to do stupid things, and at some point they're going to figure it out.
well, I mean, I'd assume they have another kicker that they could use to kick field goals instead of that guy, so they could just pick some other. Like, I mean, I don't know. I actually kind of like Kansas State there at -2. I'm not sure why that line is so short. Maybe they're just like saying, okay, Adrian Martinez is just gonna have a bad game somewhere around there, and I don't know. Maybe they think Iowa State is good. I don't particularly think Iowa State is that good. I think, yeah, they had a lot of opportunities to tie that game, but also some weird fluky stuff happened back. Kansas State kind of didn't do that great against Texas Tech. They did cover, but like it wasn't particularly pretty. Texas Tech had a chance to cover that. So yeah, I don't know about that one. That one's a little weird to me. I'd pick Kansas State there, but I don't really see why it's so low. I think Kansas State's a much better team. That's a little, but like sometimes you get weird lines like that, and generally we've done pretty well with those. So we'll see.
Yeah, it just I don't know if that's a line that stinks or not. And Kansas State's up to giving two. Um, I don't know. That's just weird. I don't know what this is now, but Utah at UCLA with total of 66.5. Am I to interpret this that the market doesn't really believe in Utah's defense?
Yeah, I
That's a high
guess
total. I mean,
64 and a
again,
half now.
okay, so it went down a little bit.
A
Again,
little
this is
bit.
the Circa Open.
I mean, that's still high total. Right? It's higher than the average total is. I think 56 is what I believe the average
Correct. Yeah.
total, and so that's still really high. Um, yeah, maybe it's kind of believing more in UCLA's offense, right? And I mean, like, I think Utah let in a couple of points there against Oregon
Oregon
State. There,
State in
maybe
the first half.
yeah, maybe they're thinking now again that Utah then clamped down. But the thing is, remember, it's both sides, right? So, and again, Washington in the second half didn't have a problem kind of coming back against UCLA, right? So maybe they're like, maybe they think kind of both these offenses are pretty good, and like Utah's defense might be okay, but that's where UC like they're both offenses are actually pretty good. So maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way because when I see that matchup, the first thing I think is Utah defense. But that's I'm gonna make a note on that. That's pretty interesting. Okay. Um, BBMI, brand-based market inertia, where we think the market is just slow to react. I don't know what this is at now, but Duke opening -2 at Georgia Tech is baffling.
3.5. I think I grabbed it at 3. Yeah. So I know why this line is where it is, but it's there for a really stupid reason. So because what happened was Georgia Tech somehow beat Pittsburgh last week, and which is by the way hilarious. That's really funny. Like that's not even like oh like wow that's crazy. Like I'm like oh my god they're gonna beat them. That's just hilarious. And like because they fire their head coach and then they immediately go on to beat Pitt, which is great. The thing is, I think they're like, oh my god, guys, Georgia Tech fired their head coach and beat Pitt. Maybe they're actually good now. But no, the answer is they're not good because Pitt was never that good to begin with. Like, we've been saying this for a long time. Like, Pitt's not that good, guys. It's not that good. People are like, they were so hype on this Pittsburgh team. I think that's why. I think people are like, "Oh, this Georgia Tech team just beat Pittsburgh. Oh, who's Duke played that's good? Dude, this Duke team is bad." Like, no, all day I would take. The minus. I don't even care about -3.5. It's Duke all the way here. Like this game feels exactly the same as last week's game, where like Duke's a
Yeah.
short favorite, just blows them out. Like this is like okay, this team had one good game, like, and then they're just gonna get absolutely crushed, like 100%.
Okay. I agree. I mean, even at 3.5, that seems really short. And then Air Force giving only 9.5 at Utah State. I'm wondering if this is a function of Air Force having a close game against Navy, which doesn't really surprise me because those academies, they're the only ones that practice against the option all year long. So those games tend to be low scoring and therefore a little closer than how other teams play them. Utah State has been so bad, and Air Force has just had one bad game, which I can overlook. I mean, Utah State's been really, really bad. This line just seems short to me, and just underestimate. I think if anything, just how bad Utah State is, and giving too much credence to maybe a close game against Navy. Um, that's how I read that. I don't know if you're seeing this the same way.
No, I agree with that. I don't know. I have Air Force as a much bigger favorite than that. So yeah, I have them as like a 13-point favorite, which again is kind of close to the 10. It's close enough where I'd kind of lay off and be just kind of like yeah okay. Um, but yeah, I don't think this should be this close. If I had it's up to 10 now, but if I had to take a side, I'd be taking Air Force though, for sure. Like this Utah State team has been pretty bad. They are not a good team. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My top QB plus quarterbacks. So the ones that just the names that stick out to me in terms of having the top QB plus. Number one, Max Duggan. I haven't mentioned him this year, but man, that TC offense, like we saw, is for real. And going down the list a little bit, number 16, a gentleman named Colin Schlee for Kent State. Interesting for a few factors here. He was 68th going into last weekend, so he had an awesome game against Ohio. Um, Kent State under Sean Lewis has made a habit of having great offenses, and this kid has just kind of gone up the learning curve really quick. Kent State plays Miami of Ohio this week, and it's I guess among college football nerd Twitter, it seems to be the matchup for that division of the MAC between Kent State and Miami. Whoever wins this seems to really have a leg up on winning that division.
Yeah.
And then shout out to my buddy Hambone, who reminded me that these bottom quarterbacks, we used to long ago call them the bum list. So going to make it its own little separate list here. These are just the names at the bottom of the QBs that really stand out for one reason or another. 17th from the bottom, Spencer Rattler from South Carolina. Clearly, it wasn't just a matter of get a name quarterback in that system and they'll go from 6 wins to 9 or whatever. 12th from the bottom, Ryan Holiski of Northwestern. I mean, just as suspected, and it's playing out that way. Just really not good on all counts. 11 from the bottom. Some of these people are saying, "Hey, Helton's got the Georgia Southern offense already fixed." Well, his quarterback is 11 from the bottom. Kyle Ventries, the transfer from Buffalo. 10th from the bottom, guy named John Paddock from Ball State. Ball State's kind of just been completely under the radar for me, but when I see a guy that's this low and we haven't really gotten much of a read on Ball State, definitely a guy to look to fade at some point once we get into conference play. This is surprising. Ninth from the bottom, Peyton Thorne of Michigan State.
That is surprising.
When we said, what's going on here when things that had gone right before the season for Michigan State were not on the coach's side of the ball. Now you see this. You're seeing what that means for Sparty. Man, it's been a rough season for Michigan State, but that I didn't think that was going to happen at all. Second from the bottom, Connor Bazelak in Indiana. Man, he is just a rough watch, and they actually have some decent skill players, but you're not going to know it with this guy at quarterback. And then first, this is surprising because he was really good last season as Logan Bonner of Utah State. That's got to be more of a symptom than the cause. It's not like he was really good at Arkansas State too. So there's got to be something just broken in the offense that's way bigger than him. I've seen bits and pieces, but I haven't really been with an eye in terms of looking at what's really wrong with their offense. But he's just made a huge tumble from where he was last year.
Regression cometh for
Yes.
Logan. Two kind of points on this. So obviously QB plus is a metric specifically about QB performance, but I want to propose like a system where you give people special bonus negative points for getting your head coach fired. So so like you could get extra negative bonus points to Graham Mertz and who else? Jeff Sims and these other. It's like I think that should be part of it too. Like if you get your head coach fired, you should just be lower on this list. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know who gets it in Colorado because they've had like four guys play quarterback there. So
all of them. That's all.
yes,
Negative 20 QBR.
they're all
Um,
in the same club.
one more quick point about Peyton Thorne because it actually reminds me of something interesting from last season from the NFL. Um, Derrick Henry. Kind of Tennessee Titans, right? The Tennessee Titans. A lot of people consider them to be a very good team last year, right? And for good reason. They were the number one seed team in the AFC. That being said, a lot of people kind of paper over the fact that they lost like I don't know 7 straight games to end the season, and they immediately lost in the divisional round against the Bengals. And I've been fading them for weeks. Or no, they didn't lose 7 straight. They like lost like six. Then they lost. Then they beat the Dolphins and they lost like the last one. So it wasn't 7 straight, but they had a bad run to end the season. And one of the reasons why they had that streak was because Derrick Henry got injured, and you had your quarterback's Ryan Tannehill, who is definitely past his prime. He's kind of aging there. But the thing of it is, I kind of feel like Michigan State and Tennessee are in that way kind of tied together. So one of the reasons why my model immediately wanted to start fading Tennessee the second Derrick Henry was gone was because it's a completely different team when you're able to like hand the ball off to Derrick Henry on
Mm,
first down. He
yeah.
gets 8 yards, and then you're starting at 2nd and 2, right? You're starting at 2nd and 2. A lot easier to play quarterback then. You could hand the ball off to Derrick Henry again and get a first down. You could complete a short screen pass. You could complete a short pass down the field, right? You could even run the ball 2 yards, right? But when Derrick Henry's gone and you're passing the ball off to Devonta Foreman and he runs for 2 yards and you're down to 2nd and 8, then you have to throw the ball, and then bad things happen sometimes when some of these guys throw the ball. And with Peyton Thorne last year, right? They had Kenneth Walker, right? God, not even 8 yards. You handed him, he gets 15 yards on first down, right? Now you don't have him anymore. Now you got to throw the ball more often. And
Hmm.
I think in some ways it's kind of the same situation where it's like if you have this amazing running game, it takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback. They have to perform a lot. They don't have to do nearly as much. But the second you make that quarterback have to start doing throws, if the pressure is on them, a lot of these guys kind of crumble under that pressure. And I think we might be seeing Peyton Thorne and kind of and Ryan Tannehill kind of having the same problem there. And like they're forced to have to do things, bad things happen. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's and again, symptom or cause in terms of why is that running game so bad? I don't know. In year three, how can it just turn a flip? I mean, running game is more than a running back, but a special guy, I guess, can cover up a lot. Kind of to your point too.
Hmm.
All right, moving on to the receivers. So these are my top receivers. This is interesting. So number one again is Ollie Jennings, a third of Old Dominion. He's 100 yards above replacement against the number two guy on the list. I just can't see him at this point being at Old Dominion next year. I think he's going to be in the transfer portal. I don't know if he'll go to the NFL not often we see guys leave early from Old Dominion to go to the NFL, but I could definitely see him moving up to a very, very good Power Five team that just needs a guy like him, which I think almost anybody could use.
Well, that's the thing, right? So, like, he goes to the NFL next year. He gets drafted in like the fourth or fifth round. Transfers to Florida. He goes in the first round,
Hmm.
right? That's the decision, right?
Yep. Yep. So other teams in the top 10 for receivers, we've talked about them a lot about really just having solid passing games all season. Tulsa, UTEP, Charlotte, SMU, Ohio State, Cincinnati, and Arizona. And then there's two other names, though, that represent schools that we haven't really talked about before this week. Number 6 is a guy named DeCorian Clark from UTSA. And I bring this up because UTSA has not been as amazing as last season, but I think that sneakily they're having a good offensive season. Aside from this guy having a good season, Frank Harris is having as a QB plus a 134, which is in the very, very good area. And so I think that UTSA might have a couple of really good efforts coming up here. I don't know, I haven't looked at their schedule, but definitely look for them if they're playing the wrong team. Maybe if there's a kind of okay team that they're playing, they might just kind of beat them by 4 or 5 scores and cover easily. And the other one is Dante Cephas, again from Kent State. We just talked about the history of Sean Lewis at there. You know, it's interesting that he is this high after they've played at Washington, at Oklahoma, and at Georgia in 3 of their 4 non-conference games. So they, Kent State, look like they're just about to, turn the corner on offense, and they could be a real bear to deal with when we get to full-on action later.
Hmm.
The USC update. So they won by 17. Again, the preseason pod, I was right on. I had this USC minus 18. Admittedly, that was against a team coached by Herm, although Herm's absence doesn't really seem to be making that much of a difference so far. Caleb Williams was sharp. He was under a lot of pressure. His QB plus is steady. It's at 143 now for the season. Basically, not a big change from last season. The offense, I have a rating for them, power rating of plus 8.1, which is 16th in FBS. When we unadjust for strength of opponent, it's at ninth, so it's good. The defense has taken a little step back in the metrics, although they were pretty good in the second half. They're plus 5.4, 25th in FBS. Um, they've made some interesting progress on their rushing defense. In their first 3 games, they were basically giving up zero point 0.7 more yards per rush than their opponents get on average, which is just horrible. That's a big difference. But then at Oregon State, they basically gave up exactly what Oregon State averages at, now 4.9 yards per attempt. And they held Arizona State to 3 yards per attempt, which is actually 1.2 yards worse than what Arizona State usually does. So the rush defense is slowly seems to be coming around. So that pass defense isn't going to, be getting all these crazy interceptions through the rest of the season. But I think that the rush defense is coming around, and they might be able to kind of just fill up some of that gap that the pass defense might leave when prove to be just merely human. Overall, I have USC second in the Pac-12 behind UCLA. To your point earlier, maybe UCLA's offense is one of the dominant units in the conference. Um, I make USC is giving 11 to Washington State. I made it 12 and a half in the preseason pod.
It's at 13 now. 13, 13 and a half.
Oh, is it? Okay, wow. My model has this at USC giving 21 and a total of 59. Some interesting points on Wazoo. They run only 40% of the time. That's the lowest in the Pac-12 and the sixth lowest in all of FBS. Their offense tends to spread out defenses and throw these, very quick passes that try to hit a wide receiver in stride, and a lot of it goes for like little gain, but you break 3 or 4 of those a game, and all of a sudden you're not that fun to play. Their defense is the opposite of USC. They're very stout against the rush, but they give up a lot of passing yards. I think that they tend to flood the line of scrimmage and dare you to beat them through the air. I don't know if they'd want to do that against Caleb Williams. That could be a big mistake. So I could they you know Dickert's a good defensive coach, so I think they might not show as much pressure. And since he kind of gets it on defense, I think he might do kind of the Oregon State thing and just try to confuse Caleb and change the look late and drop guys in kind of unexpected spots and just see if that works against Caleb and get him to throw another clunker in. Although it's at USC, it's not on the road this time.
Yeah. One thing I will say about this USC team is that it seems like we're always seeing like USC beat someone who we think is like pretty good, and like they beat them pretty convincingly, and then weeks later they look horrible. So like obviously Rice I think Rice beat Houston this last week or
They
something.
they,
So
they
that's
barely lost, but they
yeah.
actually they beat was it UA they beat UAB.
Yeah, okay. So they did that. But Stanford got crushed by Oregon, like absolutely destroyed. I had to get up early on Sunday, so I did not watch the full extent of that game, but I didn't need to. That's fine. Fresno State, they lost to Connecticut.
Connecticut, yes.
Oregon State got absolutely blown out by Utah. Arizona State, well, that's not particularly impressive. They lost to a MAC team, but I mean, that's just most recent. But to be fair, they did not cover the spread against it. Now, to be fair, I went last week when we were here. I said that I thought that the Utah, basically the USC spread against Arizona State was quote unquote disrespectful at like 26.5 or something. Now it turned out to be true.
Hmm.
And now, to be fair, I didn't play it. I'm like, that just seems disrespectful. I'm like, that seems disrespectful. I'm not playing it though, but it's disrespectful. And yeah, they did actually cover it. So, but yeah, no, like this is the thing, right? Like now, I don't. It's not a concern, right? I mean, you can't control what the people, how like the people you beat operate after that. And to be fair, also, you're getting your USC, right? You're this hyped USC team. You're getting their best, right? They're going to have their best game against you. They're not going to have a letdown game against USC, right? They're going to have a letdown game against Connecticut or Utah, right?
Yep.
They're not going to have that against USC. So you're getting their best. And again, you can't control how the teams that beat you do, but it's kind of a little uncanny that we were like, oh man, this Fresno State team, they almost beat Oregon State, like or like Oregon State, they were competitive against Oregon State, they only beat them by like a touchdown or no by a field goal, I think, or something, and then they almost lost to then Oregon just got crushed by Utah. So a little concerning for me. Now, I think this USC team is going to be fine. They're still a very good team, probably one of the best, definitely one of the best in the country. But it's a little concerning when like your best wins, like are like, oh, we beat Oregon State. Well, okay, well Oregon State just got crushed. Well, we beat Fresno State. Well, Fresno State got crushed, right? So a little concerning to me when we start seeing that. But it's still early, and I think this team is still good, but a little concerned about that.
Yeah, and to your point, the next 2 weeks, hosting Washington State and then at Utah are very, very different. So I think that'll tell a lot more about
Hmm.
what USC is than what we've seen. My future bets, the one I'm proudest of at the moment, San Diego State under 8 wins.
Yes.
You know, they can only lose one more game, and they seem to have that squarely on their radar pretty soon.
Yeah, I got the seven and a
Um,
half at like even, so I'm happy with that too. Yeah.
the one I'm not really excited about, Georgia Southern under 4. They already have 3. Damn that game in Nebraska. They actually managed to lose to I think it was it Coastal. Coastal got it out a win late, so I don't know. I think the best I'll be able to do there is a draw on the under 4. Just get a push at 4.
Well, we made money betting against Scott Frost, so now we're gonna lose it by betting
Yeah.
against this Georgia. The football gods giveth and they taketh away.
Yep. Club hot seat arrivals and departures. This is more of a coming and going in that I think Scott Satterfield was kind of taken to the building and they just told him to go to the back service entrance and wait for his car in November. I don't think he's going to grab a table at that club hot seat. I think he's just in staging, and Louisville's not going to do anything now, but it's just a matter of time. And they don't want him and his sad face just to, bring down club hot seat.
Yeah, weird situation there with Louisville. It's just this team is like really underperforming their season expectations here. Like just laughably underperforming expectations to the point where it's like you really question like yeah, like I think he's in trouble. Fascinating that we now lost Carl Dorrell. He's gone now from Colorado. Surprisingly, we lost the head coach for Wisconsin. I can't remember his name.
Christ.
Christ. We lost him. Um, Grant Mertz claiming another victim. But this is the thing, right? That one was a little surprising to me. I didn't think they were gonna fire their head coach, but and I think I mentioned this to you earlier. I think maybe they were worried that if other teams were going to start moving fast, maybe they'd get left out. And maybe that's why they made the move. But still, though, like it was very clear he wasn't the problem. Like it was not the coach that was the problem there. It was very clearly horrible quarterback play. Like the running back was great, and the fact that they have that running back after having Justin Taylor means that you can recruit. That's fine. But like your quarterback was awful. Like it's not his fault. He didn't like sign a card that says I'm BFFs forever with Graham Mertz. Like it's not his fault. Like if you're Wisconsin, you've got to get a decent quarterback. Like you have the transfer portal now. Just go get some guy. Like you can't just be like. And again, we've been talking about Graham Mertz now because he got an extra year college. But we've talked about I've been fading him like for what 3 years now. Like I've been every week. I'm like, oh man, I get to
Yeah.
bet against Graham Mertz this week. This week is great. Like every week I get to do this now, and like that's crazy. I mean, yes, just losing to Illinois by like when they scored 34-10, is that pretty bad? Yeah, that's pretty bad. That makes you feel pretty sad. Not for me though. I bet Illinois plus 8.5, so I was pretty happy. But for Wisconsin fans, that was pretty sad. Um, but yeah, no, that was crazy. That game was like nuts. I remember thinking that result was so shocking to me because I'm like, my model says to bet Illinois here, but like Illinois really like, and they
Yeah.
just crushed them. Like I was just like, my model had Illinois favor, they just crushed them. Like this is crazy. Like, but that's that's college football for you.
Yep. Yep. Um. All right. Time for the unnarduzis. So these are
Yeah.
the recognition of standout efforts.
Yes. So quick question then. So um, would if Narduzzi does get fired, do we have to change the name of this section?
Never. No.
No, we're
He's
just
part of the lore forever. Yeah.
forever in
His
stone.
imprint is
Okay.
here.
Okay, that's fair. This is his catchphrase. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna give my honor doozy to the head coach of Tulane. 1 second,
Oh, you stole mine, jerk. Willie Fritz.
Willie Fritz. Oh, okay, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'm gonna give it to Willie Fritz. I mean, that's like just an amazing story there. I mean, you're down to your third string quarterback, and you somehow beat Houston. Now again, Houston's not particularly great. But yeah, I actually like that was a really good performance. And like the fact that you're able to go down to your third string quarterback means that you're really coaching your entire team there. And that's pretty like again, how many times would you see like okay, third string quarterback come in, all right guys, that's it, we're doomed here. We're
Yeah.
done. But you pull out a win against a not horrible team. That's pretty like again, they weren't even favored. Like they were dogs in that game and then they come to their third string quarterback and then they still win. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Nope. All right, you took mine, so I'll improvise here. I will give mine to Georgia State coach Sean Elliott. They were 0-4 and they beat Army by 17, and I don't think anybody saw that coming at all. So my love for the Sun Belt continues, and that Sun Belt East is just awesome.
The Army is such a weird team week by week. Some weeks they're like, man, this team is really good. Other weeks you're like, oh my god, this team is not really good. Such a weird up and down season for Army, but yeah, still, yeah, that's a good call. I like that call for Georgia Southern there.
Georgia State.
Georgia State,
Georgia
sorry.
Southern's not getting mine now.
No, yeah, okay.
One interesting thing about Army, you had mentioned that they're kind of breaking your model with their passing so much more this
Yes.
season. I heard an interesting little gem on that I forget which Munkin. I think that Todd Munkin is their coach. So he had interviewed for the Kansas job and he thought he had it, but apparently they just can't get over a guy that runs a triple option. So apparently he's trying to throw the ball more to show like, hey, I know more than just one trick here, guys. So not that they're going to turn into Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma anytime soon, but I think they're going to throw the ball a lot more than what we've seen in the past and a lot more in line than what we've seen this season.
hmm
Pretty interesting.
I yeah, it's weird about that, like, because it was so funny with Army, because I think it was, like, early in the season, they had, like, an 80-yard touchdown
Yes.
pass, and I sent the clip to you, I'm like, "Well, that just broke my model now," because
Yeah.
the problem is Army throws the ball so little, and mine revolves around yards per play on passing. So like like if they throw the ball 3 times and one of those is an 80-yard pass, just model broken. There's no hope. Like because it's gonna be like, oh my god, guys, Army is the best. They're better than this guy is better than Bryce Young. This guy's so good, and that's the
Mm,
problem, right? Like one pass could just break the model. Now somehow, thankfully, it didn't, and I'm not completely sure how it didn't break it, but thankfully the model was able to recover. But like, yeah, it's funny sometimes when like the model will do things like that. It'd be like, oh my god, guys, this guy is averaging 40 yards a pass. It's like, well, no, he actually is only like he only threw 3 times, and but no, it's yeah, it's something you have to keep track of when you're building kind of more and more complex models. Like, what are the edge cases? How does it break? And
yep.
an 80-yard pass from a guy who throws the ball 3 times that will be one of the things that will break it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Army's throwing for 13 yards per attempt. That's pretty good.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? Like that, the 13 yards per attempt. That's one of the best. That's the best rate. That's like the best passing rate in the league. But and this is
Yeah.
where you have to build in. Like, see, if you treated Army like any other team in terms of their game plan, then Army's crushing everybody. Army's like a 20-point
Hmm.
favorite against Alabama. But you have to factor in the fact that they're only going to throw a couple times. So great, yeah, they can throw the ball 13 yards an attempt, but they're only going to throw it a couple times, right? So you have to factor that into when you're looking at it.
Yep. Um, okay. So at this point, we would usually do the rankings for who has the best shot in the G5 to get the New Year's Bowl bid. That's going to be my deeper dive in part two. So I think that's all for part one.
Yeah.
Listen into part two and catch that in my deeper dive.
All right, so yeah, I'm actually excited for your deeper dive on that because there is a very interesting topic about that. So yeah, we will see you guys all in part 2.